Welcome back to Telltale. I'm Greg, talking to you about some more great science fiction. This time, a couple of stories from the golden age of science fiction by an author named Theodore Sturgeon. I know, name for a fish. What do you want? Anyway, Sturgeon was one of the very best writers in early science fiction, publishing his first story in 1939. He published some other stories before this story, but not in the science fiction magazines. So you look at a lot of bibliographies will call Ether Breather his very first story, but it isn't really. But his other stories were like mysteries, westerns, that kind of thing. Starting as early as 1938, I think he might have done a couple in late 1937. And then he published Ether Breather, an astounding science fiction, in 1939. And I've got, this is another of those stories. It's been anthologized a lot. I've got it in more than one book. But the first time I came across it was in this book, The Great Science Fiction Stories by Isaac Asimov. This covers this started with the beginning of the Golden Age and covered all the best science fiction and fantasy published in 1939, in the opinion of Isaac Asimov and Martin H. Greenberg. And it really does have a lot of great science fiction stories in it. I mean, you got Robert Bloch, H.L. Gold, John Campbell, Lester Del Rey, Van Vogt, DeCamp, Kuttner, Heinlein, Sturgeon, Jack Williamson. It's an amazing collection. But the Sturgeon was Ether Breather, his first science fiction sale anyway. And after that, he published other stories. And then in 1940, about a year after Ether Breather, he published an astounding Butyl in the Breather, which is a straight sequel to Ether Breather. So the two stories kind of go together. Brief synopsis. Ether Breather is about, and remember, this is 1939. It's about the invention of the first atomic-powered color television set, far in our future. After it's set in a more distant time than 2022. So yeah, television sets never became atomic powered, and we've had color since the 1960s. But in 1939, it was a cool concept, and it really was just a construct to get to what Sturgeon really wanted to talk about. So it starts out with this writer. He wrote a play. It got televised, and it was sponsored by this perfume company. And the writer is watching it on TV. And so is the rest of the whole nation, because it's the very first color telecast. So it was a big deal. And all of a sudden, during the commercial, the actors doing the commercial start saying bad things about the play and then putting down the perfume sponsor of the teleplay. So both the writer and the owner of this perfume company head to the studio ready to kill somebody, because that, of course, wasn't in the script. And they found out that nobody at the studio did that. It was being done by something interfering with the airwaves. It turns out to be a being that lives in the ether. And so it lives in the wavelengths that this color TV was projecting through. And it had a big sense of humor, so it decided to play with us. And the second story, the breather had disappeared, and the second story was all about trying to bring him back. So they find a way to put the wavelength equivalent of a smell through the airway, of a bad smell through the airwaves, in order to get the ether breather to come back. I'm not doing justice to these stories. They are hilarious. They're very imaginative. They're very funny. And they're kind of in that same class with The Man Who Could Work Miracles, of taking ordinary people and throwing them into an extraordinary circumstance, and having all kinds of funny mishaps take place, which was very popular in the magazine Unknown, which Sturgeon wrote a lot of other stories for. So that was at the very beginning of Theodore Sturgeon's career. He would go on to do some really great things that I'll get into later, but this was the beginning, and it started off with a bang. These stories are true classics. They are excellently written. They are very funny. They're top tales. I would recommend them. Just kind of overlook the fact that they were written in 1939, and so some of the facts are definitely wrong, like color TV not having been invented yet in 2022, and television sets being atomic powered. Goofy. Till next time, like us, subscribe, leave comments. If you've read Ether Breather or Butyl in the Breather, what do you think? And we'll be back again with more.